Hello everyone! Blue Star Saber here once again to do another One Piece chapter review. Chapter 1156, which I believe is, wrong tab. Not off to the best start, but that's just me, of course. But come on, load. Anyway, what was I? Oh yeah, chapter 1056. 1156 Idols, in which this chapter is a follow-up to last chapter from like 2 weeks ago, in which we learn how Loki met the Rocks pirates, how Rocks actually met Harold at the Reverie, how they sort of became friendish, at least on Rocks' end. Howard doesn't really want to do anything associated with him, so King Howard have Conqueror's Hockey. All that kind of stuff. We saw how Rocks formed his pirate crew by Davy Backfights, and his ambitions to destroy and take over the world, if you will, which inspired Loki. We also ended up seeing a bit of Howard, Loki, being surprised by Howard seemingly caring for him as a son, but he doesn't seem to quite believe it yet. But yeah, all that kind of stuff. Such a phenomenal chapter it was, and now we are here to discuss this following chapter. But before that, I'm just going to get to the cover as well, that we have this colored one here. We also got the Shonen Jump cover, where instead of just one character, it seems that they're doing a double page one of all their current anime manga running right now with, Luffy at the front and center, of course, but with various Pokemon. Luffy, of course, being next to Pikachu, which is probably the most recognized the mascot of Pokemon at this point. And Luffy, probably the most famous and recognized manga in Jump, so at least in Japan, at the very least. So yeah, you've got that Kowabachi manga where I think a Tepig is next to him. You got Sakamoto with a Chikorita next to him, or maybe Clefairy. But you get to see all kinds of Pokemon here, such as the Mega Charizard X, Mega Blaziken, Mega Gengar, Mega Absol, Greninja, Rapidash, Mega Gyarados, Meowth, Mega Garchomp, that key Pokemon from Gen 6, I can't remember the name of. Mega Gallade, I believe. Chikorita, Wobbuffet, Eevee, Totodile. I believe Totodile, Tepig, and Chikorita because of the whole upcoming Pokemon Z game, if you will. And all these other ones are just famous Megas. Arguably, this is probably to help promote the Pokemon game that's coming out, since most of these Pokemon are Megas. But yeah. The other shonen and other mangas here, but I can't recognize any of the characters. I have become that old that I no longer recognize the majority of Jump magazine characters. So yeah, only One Piece really remains, to be honest. So yeah, God, that's how old I've become. But enough of that. Onto the actual Jump cover itself, which we've got this sort of as you can see, a double-page spread of Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, being the receptive future Pirate King and the future Wings, as well as Roger and Scopogaban and Rayleigh laughing, who are the old generation of Pirate King and his two wings, if you will. So yeah, it's sort of doing the sort of parallels with Roger and Rayleigh on this side, and Sanji and Scopogaban on this side, which depends if you look at it from this view, this would be the right and this would be the left. But yeah, but you also, for Luffy, who's just jumping and having fun in the center, has all of his crew in the pocket, such as Jinbei and Usopp here, Frankie here, Chopper here, Robin sitting there, and Brock playing music there. Nami is a bit larger and right next to Luffy, arguably his pirate queen, if you will, if you want to get into the shot of shipping. But yeah, but Roger's just laughing there. Used to look menacing there, and you've just got Zoro and Sanji being angry at each other here. So, arguably, showing the sort of dynamics of the sort of monster trio of the Pirate King's era, and the Straw Hat era, if you will. So, yeah. Anyway, I've rabbled long enough. Time for the actual chapter, in which the chapter begins where we see a bunch of so the narration goes like that there's a group of idols that roam the sea. Let's see, and that let's see, this village has been attacked, but for some reason or another, the men are not actually really fighting back. As you can see, there being a bunch of love-struck idiots, including even the Marines. Let's see, you see the woman complaining about how everything's been stolen, and the men are just not fighting back. They're trying to say they're too tough, but they're just like, you didn't even lift a finger. And then even the Marines, as we said here, didn't deal with them. And of course, this was none of, and the reason this is explained is because it's none other than the Kuja pirates from during the time of Roger's generation. Let's see, where they're a band of warriors with an exotic country of women. And let's see, arguably we learn that basically they managed to steal all that stuff and beat the Marines and that stuff because since the women on this Uetzi boat are so beautiful, they just couldn't lift a finger, if you will. So, yeah. And the one person that was leading the group at the time is none other than their captain. As narration goes, these pirates were strong and beautiful, shunned the pressures of men. And and of course, it's none other than, of course, the Empress of Amazon Lily, the Kuja pirates, Gloriosa, which we saw this was her during the Kuma flashback, but we see that from this point that she is such a beautiful, Wurtzy, idol woman, if you will. You've got members of her crew love-struck, citizens being love-struck, but she ends up doing the ironic comic about how she's so sick and tired of looking like this all the time, and think about only she could strip her away, which, to be fair, as we see what she looks like now, she no longer really looks like that, and is arguably very tiny and all that stuff, and rather old, so who knows whether or not she regrets saying those words, but yeah. But she wishes she could strip this beauty away of her. But you've got basically everyone admiring her in the crew about being a goddess. They basically love her. And some of them even talk about having a heart attack about it. But she ends up asking, this young woman here ends up giving her this bag of letters, if you will, in her hand, which is revealed to be none other than Trichama, who is the future empress, as Gloriosa is going what's that enormous black back pile there? And she end up this sort of innocent smile. Hold on, let me just find it. Damn it. Let's see, this innocent smile here. Let's see, as a sort of a young admirer, if you will. Where she talks about, she just says, we're smiling that these are from Lady Shaki, which, much to Gloriosa's fury, is how come there's 100 times more of them? But yeah, this is basically the pirate empress that was before Boa Hancock, but after Shaki, who did actually die of the illness. As the narration goes let's see, she's 2 generations later. Anyway, Gloriosa gets let's see, she's a bit jealous that since she's the captain of the crew, she's she should be the one that's getting attention, not Shaki, if you will. And she's everyone is going she's a light jewel, just being adoring her jealousy. But narration goes about how, yes, the true star of the times, who outshone even Gloriosa's booty, was her first mate, Shakuyaku. And then, let's see, Amazon alerts her that there's an enemy ship approaching. And let's see, Gloriosa's getting all love struck by, isn't that, as a narration says, is this thing on? And it turns out to be none other than, hold on, let me just find it. Damn it. The Roger pirate ships, as Roger ends up speaking, saying, this is Roger. As someone shouts, it's the Roger pirates, saying, don't bother resisting Kuja pirates. And we see let me find it. Oh, yeah. A young Roger shouting out with the microphone here, saying that today, once and for all, you're finally going to hand over your first mate, Shakiya. And Gloriosa is basically jealous, saying, haven't you learned your lesson already, Roger? Revealing that the person that she fell in love with was none other than the king of the pirates himself. And she's like, you only have my affections to return. As the Roger pirates go like, seize her, and they attack. But let's see, but Shakia comes barging out of the door, and she goes like, who you expected to see? All the Amazon women are going like, Lady Shaka. And the narration says someone once said that her every move, gesture embodied pure seduction. As you start to see members of the Roger pirates, including Scopper Gaban, going like, there she is, it's Shaki. As you got many of them pointing out flowers, saying, please take my flowers. No, going my one, and all that stuff. As the narration goes about how... Hold on, let me just get the image up. Nope. Here we go. As the narration goes like, her presence flows withered and crumbled. Birds forgot to sing, and people erupted into fighting each other over like not to touch Shaki, and she ends up kicking Gaban's butt, if you will. Let's see, who basically goes love-struck crazy when she calls his name, and she goes like, it's been a while, Roger, and like he goes like, what do you do to Gaban? But he hesitates, and as you can see from this panel here, she pins him down, arguably being the first person we've actually seen to be able to defeat the Pirate King, if you will. Though granted, that's just due to the fact that Roger is so love-struck by Shaki that he just can't be able to, let's see, lift a finger, though Shaki teases her by saying, I love you too, Roger, but more of the fact that she just likes making us a fool. As the narration goes, in the face of such beauty, the mighty made fools of themselves. So, yeah, Roger is completely love-struck by her beauty. And as we see from this, let's see, damn it, I really got, let's see, damn it. I'm trying to find, where's that panel? I'm sure I did it. Here it is. As we see, let's see, goes like, she loves her too, but it explains, but I belong to no one, as she just chins him up and just like saying, just basically flat out rejecting, in which gets all of the women just sparkly eyed, as then we've got like the full proper introduction here of Shaki, telling them to pull all the treasure out of your hold. Let's see, as women are just love struck, and then you see like let's see, Roger with who is still completely love struck, despite the fact that you've got Gloriosa saying, hey, Roger, pay attention to me. Let's see. Wondering, like, how come you don't understand being honored by love by him? But Roger's just like, move it over, Gloriosa. I can't see Shaki. And she's like so jealous as we can see. Shaki is just like the way she moves is basically, let's see, a Boa Hancock, if you do, in terms of walking here, as you get the introduction of Koja, Pirate's first mate. And then let me just we end up seeing Rayleigh here, as Rayleigh's talking about how it's a bunch of let's see if Shaki goes like, I feel for you, Ray, as he goes like, yeah, it's a bunch of idiots here, but she gives him a nodding wink, and Rayleigh seems kind of embarrassed, if you will. Let's see, as in it shows that Shaki has only really got eyes for Rayleigh, but Rayleigh, at least at this time, might be either not really love struck over her yet, or at least not yet fall in love, but is clearly embarrassed by the affection. So yeah, as we do know that these two do eventually end up being married. So yeah, but yeah, as Shaki here is basically let's see, wooing everyone here. let's see, the Kuja pirate, I can remember the Kuja pirate to go like, Lady Gloriosa, it's the Navy, telling them to hurry, pack all the goods and don't leave a single crumb of bread. And they go like, yes, man, with one of the Roger pirates saying, hey, at least leave us some food. Where Roger says, we gotta get moving, prepare to sail. But let's see, at the moment, I think, hold on, Scopocaban takes a look, saying, hey, look, it's actually Roger. And, let me just find the image. Oh, yeah. Roger. Saying it to take a look. Let's see, Roger goes like, what? And goes like, disregard that order, saying, listen up, boys, let's flatter them, as you see Roger and, let's see, Garp, if you will, declare that they're going to destroy the other, as you get the narrations of Pirate Goldie Roger, future Pirate King and father of Ace, and Navy HQ Admiral, Vice Admiral Garp, future and hero of the Marines, and grandfather of Luffy, showing a sort of legacy that these two leave behind, as well as the titles that they will eventually inherit. And this is where let's see, Roger and Garp, let's see, clash, if you will, as they use, hear their attacks called Meteor Fist and Rampaging, Spirit, as you got people just commenting about, here it comes. With Gloriosa, I think, saying it just had to be Garp's ship, as Roger and Garp clash, slashing and punching each other. You could see Roger being punched in the face and Garp being slashed by the sword here, if you will, taking a bit of damage. But Roger looks like he's taken the most damage here. As the narration goes like, Roger, Garp, and Rox, men whose tales were spread as legends in the great age of pirates, first clash here in their hot-blooded youth. Hold on. And then we see some of the Kuja notice something wrong with Gloriosa, who seems to have fainted. But the narration goes like, meanwhile, the Kuja pirates were tremendously popular and irresistible parts of the story of this era, indispensable part of the story of this era. With Lady Shaki, hold on, let me just Lady Sharky just telling Gloriosa to get a grip. Let's see, as her chest feels tight, as I think that she doesn't get to see Roger anymore. But the Kuja pirates are going like, they're both so gorgeous, as the narration goes like, these untouchable idols were the desire of all salty sea dogs of the sea, and their bounty posters were traded for considerable sums. Arguably like idol posters, basically. Hidden cameras and pursuers were an everyday problem for them. And narration says later, when Shaki here took the mantle of Empress, her popularity reached heights never seen before. So, yeah, arguably, Shaki is basically like Boa Hancock in some regards. So, yeah, we have that. Anyway, after a bit of that long dragging of a bit of the Kuja pirates, we finally head back to basically Elbaf, if you will, where we see Ida's bar, where let's see, someone talks about how the boat that Loki was capsized on. He was on a boat and capsized, and I wasn't sure if they saved him or not. But she gets talks about that's how bad his behavior's been while you're gone, with Howard thanking them for saving him, and as he tries to tell Loki to hang in there, and as we see, Ida is scolding the captain for she'll want to save the boy, saying what if Loki died there. With Hal trying to say, but listen, Ida, it was Loki's decision to go out to sea. And she goes like, listen, let's see, so what? If you abandon Loki, I'll drown you 100 times, being like she's Loki's mother, if you will. With Loki going like, I didn't ask for help. Etsy, and he goes, the giant captain goes like, see that? You see that? That's the attitude that Etsy makes him angry at him. As Ida's talking about how he's lost his mom and his dad is too busy to stay at home, saying that Loki's just lonely, that's all. With Loki just showing complete disrespect to her. Let's see, as you've got let's see, disrespect, she ends up just saying, "Do you want to live with us, Loki?" And as you can see, oops, I should have deleted this image. Let's see, I just only realized that. Let's see, both Loki and Hadruden hate the idea of doing this and all that stuff. And Loki just ends up, let's see, oops. And Loki, let's see, just ends up just accusing her of just wanting to pretend to be his mom so she can live in the castle and take all the money, which gets Harold, let's see, Hadruden mad that Loki would say that about his mom. And Harold tells him to apologize, saying you've crossed the line. Saying how you no idea what Ida's been through, but Ida is just being such an affectionate mother. Just goes like, "Oh, you kids are too sweet." With everyone just saying you're being too soft on him too, Ida. But you've got let's see, this image here of a young Mato crying about how he hates how Loki talks to Ida, saying it's not fair. But she's like, "Oh, you're crying for me, Mato. The world's too good for me." With Loki just saying, "I'm sick of this country already," calling everyone weak and trash and all that stuff, says he wants to be free like Rox. And as the narration goes, from that point on, every time Rox came to invite Hal to join him, Loki begged and pleased to join his pirate ship, but it never got his way. As he's talking about how he wants to finally leave, saying, "Aren't you not relieved to tell the truth? He hates them all too." And then we finally cut to like basically Hachinosu before the island was looked like a skull, if you will. As it talks about how several months after the overtaking of Pirate Island by the Rocks, someone else is arriving here who talks about wanting to join the Rocks. But this guy gets mocked at. Saying you never meet him, and that they're all stars of evil in the sea, and talk about that fish-shaped rock, saying that's where they hang out. And then another guy goes like, "You're gonna try and meet him," so warning him about all the crazy folks up there the further you go in. And then I think he ends up kicking the guy. With some of the others saying go easy on him, but the pirate ends up being grabbed by the figure as he's unmasked himself, and everyone goes like, "Ah, it's him, Kyo the Hitman," who looks like a really tough guy here. I think some people compared it to Axan Morgan. And then it's revealed to be none other than Mobster Kyo. And the narration says this guy is the future Silver Axe. And it's revealed that this guy was actually Shiki's rival, with people wondering what he's doing here. As the narration talks about the powerful figures drawn to rocks brought in over mighty types in their wake, telling everyone to stay back, as someone says, "Stay back or he'll kill you." And then we see that the skull of the rock shape of Pirate Island, the holes are just blown in. As it turns out, Rox was the one that decided to open the holes, telling his crew, "Don't you think this was a good idea?" As he gets to look at the entire island, as we see, Rox. Let me just find that. Yeah, we get Rox here going like, to sum it all up, there's 2 devil fruits out there that he wants. One of them is the most likely found on Elbaf, and its power will only truly be unlocked when Harold eats it. And this is when we see members of the Rocks Pirates that are yet to introduce. Granted, this is not the panel yet to do it, but we see Long John, Captain Pirate John here, talking about, "You want to find the Galleria, right?" Saying that I only know of them as a legend. Big Mom here talk about saying how she's got her network information on the hunt, but saying there's no hint of a band of frozen giants anywhere, as it narrates her as the future Big Mom. You've got, of course, Garp talking about if they exist, they're corpses. And you've got, of course, Big Mom's oldest crewmate, Stushin here, going like, "Good point, they ain't coming back to life." As I think Rox is arguing back, saying, "Shut up, you were talking about a man's dream here." We've got this giant fisherman who I think we saw briefly in the Kuma flashback, going like, whose name is Pirate Barbell, Catfish Fisherman, going like, plus, even if they were to somehow be brought back, this says they have no reason to listen to you. And then you've got Kaido here, who is saying about how and that's what, as Rock says, and that's why I need the power of Harold, King of Elbaf. And let's see, Kaido goes like, can't you just suppress them with sheer strength? Same thing for Harold. Just crush him and make him obey you, as you got like the title of Kaido, Future King of the Beasts. And Rox is so offended by this that he kicks Kaido in the face, if you will, saying that to don't ever say that to me again. And let's see, his crew tries to tell Rox to knock it off as let's see, Kaido gets mad, is about to fight Rox, but you've got Shiki, who's being sort of like one of the higher ranked pirates of the crew, telling Kaido to calm down, saying that we just got the island, you want to smash it to pieces. This crew is bound to fall apart sooner or later. But John goes like, yeah, so why don't we earn a little more before it happens, telling Kaido to take it easy. As Rock says, Harold's my pal, saying, you say that nonsense again, and I'll get rid of you first, Kaido. And then we cut to the actual double-page spread of, let's see, the Rock's pirates here, as he goes like, listen up, folks. The key to Elbaf is the key to taking down the Holy Land. Saying, if you don't trust me on that, get lost. It's saying it's up to you whether or not you want to follow me on that fateful day of our mission. But if you've got the stones for it, then stick around with me for a bit, and I'll show you the peak of the world, as the chapter ends, of course, with basically most of the Rock's pirates that we've seen so far, minus Gloriosa and Silver Axe Morgan, but we basically have Rox, the fisherman guy here, the mobster, Whitebeard, Shiki, Wangzi, Buckham Stussy, Stusen, Captain John, Kaido, Big Mom, and this armored dude that's also a member of, that's also a zombie at the Rocks Pirates. So basically, this ends the chapter. So yeah, arguably, let's see. Now for my overall thoughts, which I will admit, the summary of this chapter took a lot longer than I intended, but I guess that's what happens when I've just, let's see, took forever to find the images, but oh well. First off, I will admit this chapter is basically kind of like a let's see. Basically, this chapter to me feels a bit like a bit out of the sort of Loki and out of the Loki Harold stuff. I mean, let's see. You only get like a few brief moments. Let's see, like 2 panels of like let's see, Loki and Harold and Julian and Ida here. But basically, it's just like a short, brief moment of family dynamics. And granted, but let's see, and it just feels like for a flashback that's focused on Loki and Harold. They don't appear much, but I think it's basically fine because basically we're learning a bit more of pirate history lore here. So I think I can somewhat excuse it. So, but yeah. But basically, this chapter has basically the sort of dysfunctional family dynamics of like having like, let's see, 2 half brothers, if you will, from different women due to certain circumstances. Where, unfortunately, as we see, no one really likes Loki. Let's see, most of the giants don't really like Loki, thinking he's a troublemaker. But only really Ida here is being all kinds of affectionate, but Loki does not seem to buy it, and let's see, basically him and Hadruden see absolutely sort of like these two just absolutely hate each other, that they hate even the slightest idea of when Ida suggests of like, you know, why don't you come and live with us, Loki? Which arguably would be the smart thing, because Ida's like, Loki doesn't really have his mother around because she died, and Harold, despite the fact that she loves the man, knows that. Let's see, he's like too busy, so it's like maybe he just needs to have some family in his life, so offers to come live with his brother, if you will. But these two, of course, being brothers that absolutely hate each other, don't want that at all. So yeah, basically how most young brothers are like when they're younger. So yeah, they can't really stand each other, but But yeah, but Loki, as we see from like this family dynamic, is just like does not seem to like trust Ida at all, does not seem to believe that she's genuine, and that she's only really interested in his family's fortune. Arguably, maybe he perhaps thinks that because his own mother was like that, or at least what he might remember of his own mother, because let's see. Now, granted, even though he was like a baby, he does know that his mother didn't love him. But I wonder if he knows that his mother only really cared about jewelry, possessions, and all that. So, but he's like, but Loki's just got such a cynical view, I think, and because that let's see, he doesn't think anyone would actually love him. Doesn't think that Ida would want to be a genuine like mother figure in his life, if you will. Let's see, even when everyone, let's see, as a result, everyone gets mad at him for like bad mouthing her, including let's see, Judah, because of what's his mother, and how just like Loki, who's while sympathetic to like Loki, does feel like Loki gets himself in trouble and even tries to scold him. But of course, let's see, Ida is just so sweet, and just even when you've got like, let's see, having people like Marco here, like let's see, getting sad that people are making fun of Loki. She just seems to dismiss it of Loki just being a silly boy and just calling him and Judah being sweet. Granted, it is interesting that we see the young Marco who eventually takes over Ida's bar, which does lead to question. Let's see, does lead to question: are you is she still alive by the time that we are in the current timeline of the Elbaf arc? We have yet to see her. We don't know what she's like. We don't know if she's alive or not. How curious, so like this one person that seems to defend and try to be a motherly figure for Loki. I wonder how she will eventually play it, how she would eventually react to events that have led to Harold's death, and whether or not she actually believes Loki is the one that killed him and all that stuff. I mean, I'm curious to see how that ends up being the case here, but yeah, but basically that is basically just the dynamic of like the dysfunctional family of like the royal giant family of Loki, if you will. So we got that. But anyway, interesting. I will admit, I felt this was it was a bit strange and random coming up to this, but it is interesting pirate lore. Let's see, with the Kuja pirates, if you will. It's the fact that we end up learning that, they were just about, let's see, Boa Hancock basically inherit this pirate crew from multiple generations, if you will, which I suppose makes sense since we do know there are other empresses, but it turns out, at the very least, at least by the time of Gloriosa, there's been at least 4 generations of Amazon pirates, and apparently this group was full of so many beauties. They just were able to beat up any guy, or be it civilian or marine, and take like the plunder, much to the fury of like all the women, because they were just as you can see from Oda's body type standard, so beautiful. But yeah, let's see. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the summary, I do like the summary a bit, which perhaps made a bit longer than it should have. I do like how Gloriosa is just talking about how beautiful she is, talking about how it's a curse. So she might end up eating those words as she's a bit older now. But yeah, but she clearly has a sort of body type that you expect from like One Piece women. Arguably, she kind of reminds me a bit Nami-esque figure here. And of course, she like Boa. It seems like every Amazon empress is like this standard beauty, and just like everyone just fawns over them and all that stuff. But unfortunately for her, she's got a rival with Shaki, and it's like unfortunately for her, Shaki is just that much more popular. Who I will admit, gives me a very Boa Hancock vibes here and all that stuff. Maybe Nico Robin. Now, granted, it depends. Now, granted, from what I've seen, it depends on the One Piece fan. At least the YouTubers like King of Lightning, they view like Nico Robin to be the sexier between Robin and Nami. But so who knows? Maybe Oda is like paralleling here with like the Boa Hancock Nico Robin in this past generation Shaki was a bit more of the attractive one, but yeah. But it was actually nice to see the Triatamaya, the pirate empress before Boa Hancock, showing that there was at least 3 empresses on the ship at the same time, which arguably meant that 3 generations, one is the captain, one is the first mate, and one is like a sort of like a cabin girl, from what I can say, or some sort of apprentice, given the fact that she's doing this chores of the males here. It does make me wonder if like Boa Hancock might have been the first mate of Tritamar when she eventually returned to the Amazons after being freed by Fisher Tiger from the world nobles. But yeah, it was nice to that. We saw like a bit of the SBS, but now we officially watched at least in the manga, even if it's just her younger form, if you will. It is interesting that, from what we've seen of like Gloriosa liked Roger, let's see, Shaki liked Rayleigh, Luffy, Boa Hancock likes Luffy, so sort of like that generation of Pirate King, his right hand man. Let's see, sort of like having Pirate Empresses fall in love with her, with like the modern day Pirate Empress falling in love with Luffy. It makes me wonder like who Tritama actually fell in love with. I've seen a lot of people doing theories that it was Dragon, and that she might be Luffy's mother, which I think people forget that she knew that this is the Empress that could not return the affections, and also the fact that, Amazon women only could only give birth to daughters, so it couldn't be Luffy unless Ivankov did a gender swap, and we know that Ivankov did not know Dragon had a son, or a child at the very least, so yeah. Now, granted, I think everyone's been saying Dragon, but personally, if I'm thinking of going like with the Pirate King generations and parallels, I have a feeling that the pirate, the man that she fell in love with, probably didn't return the affections, was probably none other than Shanks, because I think it would be fitting that the Pirate King, his right-hand man, then his apprentice / successor, if you will, and then, for Shanks, and then Shanks, the one who entrusted, and then Luffy, the one who was entrusted with Roger's legacy by Shanks, and I guess even Rayleigh. So I think it would make a much more sense if I had to guess, the pirate that she fell in love with would be Shanks, if you will. So yeah. But we end up seeing basically the Roger pirates here, young Roger and Ace. And while Gloriosa is like beautiful, we end up learning that the person that she ended up, like I've mentioned a bit earlier, is, she basically fell in love with Roger. So basically, at the moment, we've got, 3 out of 4 currently pirate empresses who fell in love with men, but it was men that did not fall in love with them, if you will. The only exception, of course, seems to be, hold on, let me find it. Rayleigh and Shaki, but that's probably because, Rayleigh didn't act like a idiot. Shaki didn't go like full simp, and I think eventually seemed to just won Rayleigh the affections that they just decided to marry. So I'm not sure. So eventually, it's like he eventually recuperated the feelings, but it seemed to be more like a natural aggression rather than Gloriosa simping. But yeah, but basically, we see. It is interesting to learn that, Roger, who looks like very much like a young Ace at this time, constantly went after the Kuja pirates because, well, he had affections for Shaki here, so it seems like Roger had affections for a woman besides, with eventually would be Portdusky Rouge, his mother, which, to be honest, I find a bit ironic because, at least from what we've seen in the manga panels and the anime, Gloriosa here kind of looks more like Portdusky Rouge, but Roger does not seem to have any affections for her, despite the fact she has affections for him. But yeah, it's interesting to learn. But yeah, it's interesting that pirate empresses fall for men that don't really return the affections, if you will. After all, Boa says that Luffy is unlike other men, which partly it's due to the fact that Luffy just seems to be irresistible from the beauty. But arguably, it is interesting to learn that due to the fact that Roger is complete simp for Shaki, she is actually one of the few people that is able to actually beat Roger, because Roger's so love-struck, if you will, that he's unwilling to lay a finger on her. In fact, you see basically every member of Roger's crew, except Rayleigh, just going all fangirl, which, okay, Scarpa Gaban, you could see, and maybe the other men, but Roger, it just thinks unthinkable, and it's the fact that actually see Roger being beaten by a pirate, and like Shaki, a empress who, while probably infamous, is just arguably probably shouldn't really be on Roger's level, but due to the fact that Roger is so love-struck, he's actually lost a fight. This is the first fight we've actually seen Roger lose to in a sense, but granted, it's because it's more of like, he's not pulling his punches, if you will, and as a result, is getting the crap beating out of him and all that stuff. Which, to be honest, I thought if we were ever going to see Roger end up losing, it'd be against Rox D. Sebek, because of just the fact that Rox is such a legendary, evil, powerful pirate that felt like it's like Roger would be sort of like that sort of Luffy journey of losing to an opponent before getting strong to beat them and all that stuff. But nope, it seems that he's lost to Shayaku here. So, yeah. Yeah, and the fact they're so... the Roger pirates are so love-struck by him that she's able to take all their supplies, even when Rayleigh protests about, at least leave us some food, if you will. So, yeah. That was like, fun to actually see. But, of course, we also end up seeing, a young Garp who basically looks very much like, hold on, let me just find it. Luffy here, and you can tell that the rivalry, even at this young age, these guys are very intense and want to beat each other up. That Roger seems to completely forget that Shaki's aboard. And at first, and when at first we see like the marine ships, they're thinking like retreat for now, but when he learns it's Garp, nope, Roger wants to fight him. These two are such hot-blooded youngsters at this time that they want to beat the living daylights of them. And we see, of course, their attacks. We end up learning of another attack from, I believe Roger here, a move called, what is it called? Oh, yeah. Rampaging Spit. The Meteor Fist, of course, is from Garp. And as we can see, there seems to be a bit of a stalemate here, but I think from just the way Roger's being punched here, it seems Garp might have had more of the advantage in this fight, which arguably makes sense. They're not at their prime yet. Even though you see the hockey clashing, they're not like split the skies level, which I believe both these guys can do. But they're not yet at their prime yet. They're growing and this stuff. So as you could probably see, they could probably do equal damage to each other, or sometimes they win, or sometimes they lose, or at least nearly lose at the very least, because Roger looks like he's taking more of a beating here than Garp at the very least, in terms of that face painting thing, which is kind of interesting to see, because throughout, One Piece until this chapter so far, Roger always seemed to be like invincible, and the fact that best you could do was to have a stalemate against him. But you actually do see him getting beat up a few times, and even his butt kicked due to the fact he cannot resist such a beautiful woman. But yeah. But it is interesting, I guess, to learn a bit of it. I'm not sure. I will admit, it's a bit of a surprise to learn all this Kuja Pirates lore. But I assume this is just like building up to show what the dynamic was just before Gloriosa here joined the Rox Pirates, because it says here at some point after this, Shaki would become the Empress and the popularity will reach soaring heights. Now, whether or not Luffy will end up with Boa Hancock or Nami, I don't know, it really depends. If I had to say, probably more likely Nami, just because, Roger didn't, if you're doing a parallel, Roger didn't really end up with, like, his Pirate Empress, to be honest, but, no, interestingly, so who knows, that might be the same case with Boa Hancock, but who knows, but Shaki looks a bit more like Boa Hancock, if you ask me, minus more of the, I guess, the more facial features around the face here. But yeah, or the lips, but yeah. So who knows? But it is interesting to have one difference between Roger and Luffy. Is the fact that Roger would actually simp for someone. But anyway, the more exciting part at the end is basically, going to Pirate Island and seeing the fact that what it was like before it had the skull thing, and the fact it was actually Rocks himself who made it look more like a pirate skull when it looked more like a fish thing, from what we can tell here, where that probably just became more of the bandana, the eyes, the nose, the skull thing, and eventually used, I think, by the corrupt King Prez from the fourth captain of Blackbeard as like a part of his like devil fruit ability. But who knows? Probably have to. I've forgotten his name. Pissarro, I think it was. But yeah. But let's see. But it is quite interesting to see that kind of lore there. The fact that rocks sort of helped shape the island. But also we end up, getting meet to another legendary figure we heard from like chapter 957, which is Silver Axe, which Silver Axe. Let me just. Was it Silver Axe Morgan? Or no, I'm thinking of Axan Morgan. Let me just. Oh yeah, future Silver Axe, but yeah, but he went by the name of Kyo the Hitman here, who was a bit of a mobster. And interesting, we end up getting a bit of lore here that he's actually Shiki's rival, so which probably should make sense because of the gold and silver thing. But yeah, this guy was the rival to Shiki at the time. And it's interesting the fact that he ends up willingly coming to join the Rocks Pirates. So it seems like Rocks, even though he might have beaten most of the crew to become a part of his crew. We did see with Kaido, he did get some people to come out and recruit themselves, but it seems that he also had people willingly come to join his crew at the very least. For the score and the ambition at the very least, from what I can tell, because you do have members of the Rocks crew thinking that this crew won't last forever, but at the very least, let's keep teaming up for the time being, just so that eventually we can all keep getting this big score, if you will. And so yeah. And it is interesting to see Rox's ambitions. Talking about his ambitions here after destroying the skull thing, about how for Rox's plan to work to take over the world, he needs two certain devil fruits and two certain devil fruits, if you will, which we have no idea what they are. It could be the Sun God Nika one, it could be the Yamio Ni, it could be the Quake one, it could be this other fruit that we don't know of it yet. Let's see, either way, but yeah. And also he needs how to have one of those fruits, so it might be the fruit that might be in the chest, unless that's the actual Sun God one here. But it is interesting to see that more members of the crew end up joining here, and we end up seeing their opinions on the fact that that Rocks needs this plan for the devil fruits. And that one of them is on Elbaf and needs how to eat it. And they're talking about how Rocks seems to need Elbaf, and how specifically to find the Galar, those ancient giants mentioned like 2 chapters ago, who seemingly help build, I think, many people theorize building Pluton. So it might be that Rocks' plan is to try and get Pluton, or at least a ship built similar to it. Or at least wants an army of ancient giants to help. And you've got like members of the crew here just talking about them as being legends. Let's see Big Mom having her network even back then, it seems. But it seems like it'd be hard to find some frozen giants. Whitebeard thinking they'll be corpses, and Stressen thinking they can't come back to life, even though Rocks argues back. And we get an introduction, of course, from Babbo here, the fisherman dude, thinking like, why would they listen to you? Which really talks about why we need Howard for that. And of course, Kaido says, why don't we just submit everyone? But of course, this leads to like Rocks kicking Kaido in the face, which for Kaido fans, this must sting. But I do like how it shows the sort of dysfunctionality of the crew, and how strong Rocks was, that he's able to kick someone like Kaido and make it hurt. Which, to be fair, he did view Rocks as his top 5 and all that stuff. But it is interesting the fact that Rocks generally views Howard as a friend and doesn't want anyone bad-mouthing him or saying to take over, as he seems to generally want him to be a part of his operations to take down the world. Though unfortunately for Harold, let's see, no matter how many times as we saw in the narration a bit earlier in this chapter with the Loki stuff, no matter how many times he wanted to went to visit Harold, he would reject, but Loki would always want to join, but Harold rejected him for being a child. And even though he tried to, most of his reasons of sailing out was trying to want to join Rox, but because of his age, he was too young, which unfortunately for Rox, perhaps if Loki was older and did become a similar age to like what Harold was, Rox might have actually taken Loki and his plans might have gone more forward if he actually had Loki at his side, because Loki was actually enthusiastic of teaming up. But I will admit, this Jet Sea Fishman here is quite impressive, given the fact that how big he is. Let's see, even bigger than Big Mom. So, yeah, that's impressive. But yeah, oops, hold on. Anyway, but yeah, I do like the sort of like I said, friendship of Harold has with Loki. I mean, Rox has with Harold. But yeah, but clearly, but clearly, for some reason, we learned that you need Elbaf to help take down the Holy Land, and says that you either follow him or not. You can get lost, but if not, stick with him, and he'll show him the peak of this world. So, yeah, Rox really does have the ambition, and in many ways, you kind of actually want to see him pull it off because of just how many people, these legendary figures, he was able to get under his crew and take it, and the fact that the only reason he ended up failing in the end is because, well, basically, everyone else teamed up against him. So, yeah. Let's see. You've got, basically, Rox did everything right. It's just that everyone else just teamed up against him, if you will. The only thing that, unfortunately, that his plan probably didn't go to plan was basically Harold just refusing to outright join him. If he did, who knows? Maybe he could have succeeded or not. We just have to wait and see. But yeah. Overall, this chapter was good. Granted, I will admit, it's not as great as the last two chapters, or at least especially the last chapter. And I will admit, it did feel like it was moving way too much from the Loki stuff with like the Pirate Empress, with the law of the Pirate Empress's generations, and the fact that, Gloriosa is actually in love with Roger, so like that, and well, you got Shaq, and Roger was in love with Shaki, but Shaki loved Rayleigh because Rayleigh wasn't being a all love-struck puppy, if you will. So you got all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but Roger basically, but yeah, so you kind of got like this sort of like generation of pirate kings and their right-hand man, and if I had to guess, Shanks in the middle, and then Luffy. So you got that sort of line of pirate kings and like their successors, if you will, and pirate empresses having that sort of like love situation, if you will, with only really one generation succeeding with like Rayleigh the right hand, and Shaki was also sort of the right hand. But yeah, so you have all that, but also but you also end up seeing actually how Roger could actually be beaten once because, well, he actually had a thing for Shaki. Other than that, it's nice to see a little bit of the young rivalry between Garp, Rox, and Rogers, and these guys were regarded as the top three at the time. These were the three strongest individuals, so yeah. So arguably, this is just before Whitebeard would eventually take Rox's place, of course. And you see in the sort of the functional family dynamic of Loki and, with Ida and Hadrudin, where Ida does want to try and be a mother figure, but Loki just does not buy it and all that stuff. Other than that, you do get also, of course, and of course you get like the epic recruitment of the Rox pirates here, learning that they make the Skull Island itself. Silver Axe being introduced and wanting to join the pirate crew, the Rox's crew willingly, and learning more about Rox's goals and plans involving 2 devil fruits, Elbaf, and how to eat one of them, and arguably probably this is one of the treasures that was stolen by the world nobles that led to the incident of the God Valley. But yeah, but either way, Rox's plan is like coming together, his crew's coming together, and they look menacing as hell. Overall, I'd probably give this chapter an 8.5 out of 10. let's see. My only real criticism is maybe the whole, let's see, Loki stuff feeling out of play. Let's see, Loki stuff not really being there. But nevertheless, it was a good chapter. I think it would let's see, we'll move. It seems like we're turning more into a Rocks flashback. Will we get to see the God Valley incident? Let's see, who knows? It might be that, let's see, Oda saves that for later. But for now, all the stuff with Rocks is continuing to be interesting. And even now we're starting to see how Roger played in this era quite a bit. So yeah, overall, an 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to the new chapter that's coming out later this week. But for now, I am Blue Star Saber signing off. For those who end up listening to what I had to say, I hope you enjoyed, even if I took a bit long in the summary. But thank you and goodbye for now.